Take a look behind the scenes as I stitch up some key flags, owl masks in many colors and styles, playful woodpecker masks, and even some magical owl wings. Halloween may be 6 months away, but for a handmade shop owner, now's the time I start to pull together ideas and materials for this year's Halloween pop-up shop. Hey everyone, I'm Heidi, a handmade business owner stitching up bags and accessories inspired by my favorite 80s and 90s pop culture memories. But around this time of year, I'm prepping for my Halloween pop-up in between filling orders. After all, it is one of the most wonderful times of the year. So in this video, I am just going to show you a few things that I stitched up last year for Halloween and winter. And one of the most popular masks that I have sold in probably the last 5 years is my owl mask. What is on the embroidery machine right now is my classic owl mask, one of my favorite masks to make. I make it in multiple colors and multiple styles, and I just love watching it stitch out, to be perfectly honest. In my sewing room, I do have two of these single needle machines, and then I also have a commercial embroidery machine, which you will see a little later on in the video. During my slower seasons, I will usually only use one machine at a time, but during the busy season, as you will see in a few minutes, I do get all three machines going at once. They do like to give me trouble all at the same time, but overall, it is a much more streamlined process. When I have all three machines going, I usually have all of my materials pulled aside ahead of time, and it just makes everything move very quickly and easily. I get a ton of sewing done, I stack it up in a pile, and then I do all of my cutting at once. Now I have moved on to making some key flags. I did have some key flags started in this particular hoop, and I needed to come back to finish the rest of them. So that's what I'm doing here. My key flags are made out of marine vinyl and glitter vinyl, and they just go on your key fob or your key ring, and they're a fun little decoration. I also attach them to some of my small zipper bags as well. And here we go with another owl mask. This one is going to be in my tan and brown. These do take quite a while on the machine, as this stitch that it's doing right here is a fill stitch. It creates faux feathers on the face. It's beautiful to watch, but it does take quite a while. I would say that the first few years that I sold this particular mask, this color combination was the most popular. In more recent years, the white mask has become more popular, either white with kind of a gold colored for the feathers, or the white and gray. Some people use it as a magical owl. This owl mask is a little newer to my collection, and I have to say that it is one of my favorites. This is my exotic owl mask. It has a very beautiful filigree embroidery stitch. It has beautiful filled eyelashes and a mock jewel. It's just very lovely. I completely enjoy making this mask. I don't know if I've ever done a video about all of my scissors. I think that I've talked about them a little bit on social media. Let me know in the comments if you ever want to know about the tools I use when I am doing my machine embroidery. But I do have quite a collection of scissors, both for cutting fabrics, for cutting my felt and marine vinyl projects, as well as specialty scissors for cutting things like the applique in this mask. And here it shows a setup for all three machines in progress. In the far machine, that is my commercial machine, I am making a set of owl wings. In this front machine closest to the camera, I am making another owl mask. And then in the middle machine, I had that set up to do different animal tails. I can see some auburn colored fabric. That is usually for my foxtails. So I would assume that's what I have going on in that machine. It does get very loud in my sewing room with all of these machines going. I do like to listen to Disney music and musicals while I'm working, but it does get very loud and it annoys my kids quite a bit. My sewing room has been a work in progress for quite some time. I am currently in my garage now. I used to have one bedroom in our house, and it was about, I want to say 10 by 10. And I did have this big table and all of these machines set up in that room. Now I have, again, it's just a single car garage, but I am in the process of repainting the walls when I find time so that it's not so dark. But even the tables have changed a little bit. I have a smaller table now next to the commercial machine, so it's a little easier to get past the machine. Now, sometimes you will see me putting my hands into the machines while they are working. I do not recommend doing that to anyone. Knock on wood, I have never gotten my finger stuck in and under the needle, thankfully. But it is something that is fairly easy to do from what I've seen in embroidery and sewing groups. So I don't recommend it. Most of the time, I do have a wooden chopstick hanging out somewhere on my desk. And if I need to hold down fabric that has to go under the presser foot or under the needle, I do try to use that chopstick as much as possible. It's strong enough to hold the fabric down, but if the needle hits it, it will just break apart and it won't damage my machine too badly, and it definitely won't damage my hand. Now in that middle machine, I am finishing up a cattail. Those are incredibly popular during Halloween in lots of different colors, but mostly black is a top seller. Last year, I think orange was just very popular. For the owl wings, they do have applique feathers. I do offer them in tone on tone to match the owl masks, but over the last year, I was getting more orders for solid white. To be perfectly honest, I could just stitch down the white and not add the applique, but I do think even the tone on tone of the white on top of the white, it just stands out better in my opinion, and I would just rather have a better product than to not include that extra layer. Just a friendly reminder that if you are loving these crafty creations and want to add them to your own Halloween wardrobe or gift them to a friend, be sure to subscribe to the email list for updates when they will be available on my website and in my Etsy shop. I'll leave a link down in the description below. And if you're enjoying this behind the scenes look at my creative process, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the bell for notifications. Now on the back of this, I am adding something called Peltex. It actually makes the wings stand up stiff when someone's wearing them, and then the backing felt fabric. So the Peltex, it gets sandwiched between all of the felt. In the first machine, I believe I have moved on to some walrus masks. I do love making the walrus masks. I really just I like making the masks. They're a lot of fun. Years ago, my handmade business was only making masks and educational toys along with the costume accessories. And I truly did love making these. After a while, all year long, it did take away from some of the fun of making the masks, which is why I now only offer them in a Halloween pop-up shop, because I do love making them. It's just that making them all year long, it just gets a little tedious. So that is why they are not normally for sale in my shops 365 days a year. So back in my red line, which is my commercial machine, I have started making some woodpecker masks. After the owl masks, the woodpeckers are probably the most popular. So I do make those 4 at a time in that huge hoop. It just goes a lot faster. There's a lot of stops and starts, and there's a few places of very dense stitching, and I can program that large machine to do a bunch of steps all at once, as long as I don't need to stop to do applique. So it just makes the process go a lot faster for me, as long as the machine cooperates. So in the middle machine, I have now started making a puppy dog mask. One of the most difficult things about having that red line commercial machine I don't know if I got a faulty machine. I'm really not sure. I have had problems with the machine basically since I bought it, that it has some very strange motor error. We have not been able to diagnose it. The company was really great when I first bought the machine. They were trying to walk me through troubleshooting. The machine is supposed to be able to be maintained at home. I do all of the other service myself on the machine, but this one particular error, it just keeps happening. It happened right out of the box. And then in 2020, when everything shut down, it just got really difficult to try to reach out to them anymore. And anytime that I was on a phone call with them, the machine would not have an error. So I just kind of deal with it. It's not the most fun thing to deal with, but I make it work. Usually, when you see me out of camera, I have not gone very far away from the machines. I don't have little kids anymore, so I'm not really worried about them going up to a machine when I'm not in the room and putting their fingers in. But I do have cats that get very curious about the machines as much as I try to keep them out of my workspace. So, generally, when you see me out of frame, I am either talking with one of my kids in the kitchen or I'm doing something at the desk and you just can't see me. My computer is in one corner, and then I have a cutting table that is just out of frame. So, I'm usually either cutting things or setting up more stabilizer, or sometimes even setting up more designs on the USBs. At the time that I was filming this, my machines had been fairly dormant for 6 months to a year. So I was having quite a few thread breaks. The machines were still, especially the big machine, was still getting a lot of oil through it. So every time you see that red light flashing, that is a reminder that something is going wrong with the machine. When I make these masks, when I do anything with my embroidery machines, I'm always trying to waste as little as possible. So, a lot of times when I am cutting out fabric for my appliques, I will cut it as close as possible to the size that I need. Most of the time, that works in my favor, but because the machines are bumping around as they're stitching, every once in a while something will shift. I can't remember if it was on this set of masks or if it was a different one, but a lot of times that white fabric will, yeah, you could see me kind of pull the fabric over. It shifts just ever so slightly and it doesn't tack down the fabric the way that it should. Sometimes I will go back and try to fix it, and sometimes I just have to scrap that mask and move on. Typically, my masks take about 30 minutes from start to finish. That is from the minute it gets into the machine, all of the stitching, and then also any cutting and trimming I have to do later, all the way into the bag. So there are a few masks that take a bit longer. this woodpecker mask, if I were to make this in my single needle machine, does take more than 30 minutes from start to finish. So having it in this big machine does save me a little bit of time, but it gets me fairly close to that 30-minute mark, which definitely has an impact on pricing, because I have seen people that do price these masks for much less than what I price them for. I don't know how they do that, except that they're just kind of giving them away. Hopefully soon I will be able to do an updated video, maybe a tour of my studio once it is actually updated and finished with the lighter painted windows. That would be super fun. I hope you enjoyed spending some crafting time with me today. Remember, creating is all about having fun and letting your imagination run wild. For currently available items, you can find the link to my shop in the description below. Thanks again, and see you soon.